Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to Mapping China and Hong Kong SAF Landscape, Policy, Projects, Demand, and Market Direction. My name's Roz. I'm the Content Director for the SAF China Congress. Sustainable Aviation Futures hosts a global series of high-level SAF and aviation decarbonisation conferences, bringing together the entire value chain to network, connect, and discuss the capabilities for scaling innovative energy solutions and powering a thriving aviation industry. Over the next 60 minutes, our panel of experts will explore where China and Hong Kong sit in the global SAF market, the policy, regulatory, and certification developments needed to scale the market, how the value chain is assessing the opportunity in the region, and solutions to common friction points. The webinar is being hosted ahead of the inaugural Sustainable Aviation Futures China Congress, which is a brand new event in our portfolio taking place in Hong Kong on September 21st and 22nd. Today, we'll provide a snapshot into some of the topics covered at the event, which will also include our speakers today. The two-day event will see 250 senior leaders and industry experts from across the entire aviation and energy value chain, both within the region and from the international SAF sector. We're delighted to be supported by the global industry, including Cathay, who are speaking today and are our official airline partner. The event will discuss policy to demand signals, designing a blend mandate, how credits could work, which fuels qualify, and what we can learn from global policy, building the next generation of clean hydrogen, carbon capture, and e-fuels, and turning China and Hong Kong into a global trading hub. All attendees for this webinar will benefit from a 10% discount to attend the Congress, so please reach out to one of the team on screen now to join us in September. If you'd like to keep abreast of all of our upcoming events, as well as gain access to exclusive interviews and articles, be sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, SAF Spotlights, by going to www.sustainableaviationfutures.com. Finally, before I hand over to the panel, just a couple of bits of housekeeping. The session is being recorded and will be distributed to you once the webinar finishes, so if you have to leave for any reason, you won't miss out, although I would recommend staying because there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can ask any questions you have there, and though our panel has a full conversation planned, they will do their best to get to some of your questions as well. With that, I'm pleased to introduce the panel. We have Jean Wang from the Australian Trade and Investment Commission, Johnny Wei from Cathay, and Jay Wang from RMI. And now to hand over to our moderator, Dr. Shen Wang, the founder of SAFPAC Inc. Dr. Wang, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ross. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for coming to our webinar today. And it is my great honor to host to moderate today's webinar. And our webinar will consist of 3 rounds of discussion. The first round, we're talking about the SAF policy in Greater China area. The second round, we'll talk about the supply and demand. And last but not the least, we'll cover about the key challenges of SAF deployment in the Greater China area. Okay, now let's enter into the first round about the SAF policy. And my first question goes to Johnny from Cathay. So Johnny, my question is, from a leading airlines perspective like Cathay, what type of SAF policy would you like to embrace in order to incentivize the SAF usage by airlines? Thank you.
Okay,
Johnny?
Thank you, Dr. Wang. Can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
very,
so it's very nice
very clear,
to
very
be
clear.
Here today with you all, and also with our attendees from all around the world. First, I'd like to give you a very brief introduction about Cathay. We are one of the leading airlines in the region of Greater China, and also flying with networks of over 100 destinations in the world. We have around 17 destinations from Chinese mainland. So, but our headquarters is in Hong Kong SAR. So if you have any chance to drop by Hong Kong, you're very much likely to see our iconic brush wing as our logo. So for Cathay, we pursue sustainability leadership for certain decades already. Since around 1997, we started to report our carbon emissions as one of the earliest airlines doing so. And also we have set the promise to reach carbon neutrality or net zero emissions by 2050, which is one of the earliest airlines to commit to this pledge in the Asia region. For us, thanks for Dr. Wang's question. I think as an airline, we always wish that SAF is not just something done by airlines alone, right? We want the industry from upstream to downstream and the policy makers to join our hands and otherwise this cannot be achieved. And that's why a mix of policy would be very helpful. I would not say any standalone policy will bring about a magical effect, right? We definitely say that the best policy will always be a package or a combination. For example, if a country wants to implement a mandate, then that should often come with a levy system or other demand supporting system, so that the mandate will not be out of source, right, out of financial sources. What we see in the region is that Singapore has led by example of SAF levy. But it is also accompanied by a procurement system which is more centralized than what we are used to be in Hong Kong. So we wish the policy combination itself can be not just one standalone pillar, but actually a combination of multiple toolkits, so that SAF can become both financially feasible and available for airlines adoption.
Okay, thank you very much, Johnny, for your very nice introduction and a very detailed explanation. And that actually transitioned very smoothly to Mr. Wang Zhe from RMI. And my question to Mr. Wang Zhe is, do you think that Greater China's SAF policy should focus more on the stick, which means the mandate, or on the carrot, which means the incentive? And this question is also closely related to what Johnny just mentioned. All right, Mr. Wang Zhe, please. Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Wang. Hello, everyone. My name is Zhe, and I'm now working for our RMI China program, focusing on transportation sector decarbonization and also other clean fuels, clean energy, clean tech. So transportation decarbonization, we dived in a lot on heavy-duty trucks, electrification, and also shipping, aviation, carbon reduction, which connects perfectly to aviation on SAF as a primary solution for realizing those targets. So I think this is a great question first, and I'm pretty much aligned with what Johnny has mentioned. So it's definitely not going to be something separate. It's definitely going to be a combo or package of solutions or policy plus market plus other mechanisms. And that leads to some of my viewpoint, which is first, everybody know like SAF currently is much more expensive than the traditional fossil fuel based jet fuels. So that means one critical factor we need to resolve is like how can we get those green premium down to the market effectively towards everybody can accept that and increasing the actual purchasing demand. That also leads to several other detailed factors that combines those like stick and carrot together. For example, like the stick, we say the mandate is definitely important because everybody knows like targets and those goals or those regulations are the first mover or the first driver initiator, so that those airlines or other stakeholders, the producers, manufacturers, and also some standard certification mechanisms. This is the foundation that everybody would like to contribute or would feel that this area is important, and this is the direction that we want to chase for, and we want to get to finally in some shorter or longer period of time. So mandates, definitely we need that. But plus that, we definitely need more carrots in the system across the supply chain, which covers not only about the demand side, the purchasing side for the airlines or for other Scope 3 emission reductions, but also for the upper side on the manufacturers or the infrastructures. Because we already seen that HEFA is the key technologies roadmaps now for producing SAF. That is going to be transited to other types of fuels as well. But currently, the R&D for those techs and also the infrastructure and the upfront investment for those manufacturer capacities is not enough for across the globe, and also for China and for Hong Kong, this region or in China. So that means like you need more of the support first to guarantee everybody is in the game for producing enough SAF, not only for capacity but enoughly for producing SAF out. but also for the infrastructure and also for the donor side onto the consumer. You need more of first, you need to standards and also certification guaranteeing everybody is consuming the SAF you want, or consuming the SAF that can guarantee enough carbon reduction and translate that into the real carbon or real green benefits. And secondly, how can we combine some of the tax credits or some other even subsidies or even some trading mechanisms to sharing a lot of the green premiums across different sectors or different stakeholders that have the willingness to pay, instead of only letting the airlines or some single corporates to share that burden. So that's going to be really critical. Yeah, I would keep it short. So that's going to be the short answer for me. It's like, yeah, definitely we need to combine them together.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your detailed explanation. So it should be a combination, of course. And then the question is what is the weighting, right, between the mandate and the incentive? And then that's actually varies from region to region. And by the way, I want to say that Mr. Wang Zhe and his organization, RMI, recently published a report together with Airbus. So in the audience, if you have time, please read that report, because that report is very, very detailed. And that report is also talking about both the biomass technical pathway and also the P2L technical pathway. I read it and I feel that I have learned a lot. Okay, thank you, Mr. Wang Zhe. And now let's switch gear to Ms. Jing Wang from Australia. And Jing, my question to you is, how do you compare the Greater China's SAF policy with Australia's SAF policy? And what do you expect the Greater China SAF policy should be? All right, the floor is yours, Jing.
Thanks, Shen. Thank you very much. Great to be here. My name is Jing Wang at Australia, the Australian federal government's Trade and Investment Promotion Agency. In Hong Kong, we are also part of the Australian Consulate General here. So from Australia's perspective, sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, is no longer just an emission topic. It's becoming a regional industrial opportunity tied to fuel security, trade flows, and capital formation. When we talk about Greater China today, I will focus on mainland China and Hong Kong as the topic name is. So because they play very different but complementary roles. Mainland China as an increasingly important production and scale market, and Hong Kong as a global aviation hub with strengths in finance, trading, and credible carbon accounting. So let me answer the policy question by simplifying it into three models. Mainland China is system building through pilots. Hong Kong is enabling demand and market infrastructure. And Australia is now moving from consultation into market building with real funding and policy architecture. Mainland China has taken a structured, pilot-led approach. Start with trial flights and hub programs and build the enabling system, certification, logistics, and standards before pushing full national mandates. We've seen this reflected in the policy direction under the 14th five-year framework, which included early quantitative targets and an emphasis on building capabilities for green aviation development. From a global alignment standpoint, this matters because aviation decarbonization ultimately needs to work under the International Civil Aviation Organization framework. That's the UN body for international civil aviation standards and climate measures. What I would expect next from mainland China is a gradual shift from pilots to clearer, scalable demand signals. Not necessarily one single mandate overnight, but stronger measures that help airlines and producers plan with confidence. Hong Kong's policy situation is different because it's primarily an international aviation hub and fuel infrastructure platform rather than a production base. The Hong Kong government has publicly recognized SAF as a key tool toward net zero aviation and has pointed to alignment with CORSIA, the Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation, which is ICAO's global market-based measure for international aviation emissions. A very practical signal of readiness is that Hong Kong International Airport's fuel infrastructure can receive and handle pre-blended SAF. And the airport has worked towards sustainability certification relevant for CORSIA-related accounting support for airlines. And on the live market side, Cathay's corporate SAF program is essentially a demand aggregation tool, giving corporate customers documentation to support Scope 3 reductions, which is exactly the kind of demand pool SAF needs into an aviation hub like Hong Kong. A good example is the HSBC Cathay Aero Series Eco Series initiative, a one-time purchase arrangement for a batch of SAF to support departures from Hong Kong, designed to demonstrate how corporates and airlines can help unlock early SAF adoption. Australia has building toward this moment for the last couple of years through consultation and project de-risking. But what's changed recently is the scale and clarity of policy architecture. First, the government announced the 1.1 billion Australian dollars Cleaner Fuels program, designed to provide production-linked incentives over 10 years to help domestic low-carbon liquid fuels, including SAF, reach commercial scale. Second, Australia has been explicitly consulting on demand-side measures, including the cost and benefits of mandates or other demand mechanisms, because without demand certainty, projects struggle to get financed. So my headline comparison is mainland China is scaling via pilots and system building. Hong Kong enables demand and international accounting, and Australia is now putting in place both supply incentives and demand-side market design, which is what investors look for when assessing bankability. Back to you, Shen.
Thank you very much, Jean. I think that is very well said. And especially I like your comment about the from the pilot to more commercialization. So that is exactly what the SAF market and also the SAF industry is currently experiencing. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for our three panelists for their wonderful explanation and also comments on the policy side. And I noticed that in our Q&A, and there's already, the audience are already very active by asking questions. So we'll answer all of the questions after the 3 rounds. So in any event you have question, please raise up in your question in your Q&A session. So our host, Ross, we're going to gather those questions, and we will ask those questions to our panelists at the end of after the 3 rounds. Okay. Perfect. Now let's switch gear to the round 2. Actually, as Jim mentioned already, she has already mentioned about supply and demand. The second round will mainly up talking about the SAF supply and demand in Greater China, and also the Asia Pacific area in general. So in this round, my first question goes to Mr. Wang Zhe from RMI. So my question is, the SAF supply in the Greater China so far is mainly based on the HEFA technical pathway, which means the HEFA means use the used cooking oil to produce SAF. So what do you think about other technical pathways, such as alcohol to jet, gasification plus Fischer-Tropsch, GFT, and also the power to liquid, P2L? And when will those projects take off? I know that you have in your latest report between RMI and also Airbus, you have already mentioned this. And could you please elaborate on this question? Thank you. Mr. Wang Zhe, please.
Yeah, sure. This is a question that a lot of stakeholders been focusing on, because contains like short-term or long-term judgment or kind of justification about what should we be focusing on for using different techniques to produce SAF. So definitely China has been using HEFA and used cooking oil for a while. And they're going to be used that for another several years for producing majorly large portion of the SAF in China. And that is majorly because China has a lot of used cooking oil resources, and that's going to be easy to accept, and then also very easy to collect and easy to use, and also that connects very well with the current supply chain or production lines for producing different chemicals. Like SAF is one part of that. HVO is another. Several other sub-products we can produce at the same time when producing SAF. So you just need to adjust a little bit about some of the numbers in there, so you can create out different products. And the cost for producing HEFA SAF is in kind of one of the lowest range of the SAF cost range around the globe. So that's the reason why if you're talking about producing SAF currently in China, HEFA, you have enough resources, you have mature techniques, and you have a relatively lower cost. So that is easier to be accepted by the market. That's the reason why the major foundation of SAF production in China is going to be based on HEFA. And definitely that's not going to be the final answer for a SAF in the whole sector, because we know like used cooking oil is having an upper limit of the resource production every year. Even though China is a big country and a lot of big countries will have those large amount of used cooking oil, that's still not going to be enough for serving the whole world for transitioning the aviation sector towards zero carbon using SAF. And that leads to why we need to think about other technical roadmaps. And there are a lot of options that Dr. Wang has mentioned. And from my perspective, first I want to mention P2L is the final one we're going to be reached that needs to take a longer term than other several ones because it requires a lot of other factors to be taken into consideration. For example, green hydrogen that needs to be taken down into a reasonable cost range. And also the production capacity, and also the carbon dioxide resources. That needs to be the real low carbon dioxide resource we need to take into account, which majorly going to be finally into BECCS or DAC. And that takes a while for technology to develop, which means that maybe 10 to 15 years, we're going to be seeing some of those P2L projects finally commercially taking off in the market, and there are more people going to be accepting those ones. So in between the HEFA and P2L, there are various options like A2J, M2J, GFT. Those are the major ones people are talking about a lot. And one of the kind of similarity between all of these ones are like they are majorly based on some of the biomass resources. And which means like all those ones, they're going to be competing in the market in different factors or different components, like the cost, which ones are maybe cheaper, they're going to be taking more market share, and which ones are really like a carbon making contribution to the carbon reduction, they're going to be more favored by the companies or the airlines. I mentioned this because there are some controversies between like A2J, like ethanols, because the US is favoring A2J a lot. And they don't care too much about like whether the corns are really going to be hurting the food or other resources, and they're going to be the land impacts. But China are now currently a little bit restricting that. So they're going to be caring more about like cellulosic ethanols they're going to be using for those A2J. And for other biomasses, they're using the GFT. This is the one like a lot of people talking about, and from the straws, and also from other types of the resources. And the cost is still people concerning about, because that's it is still in a quite high level compared to the HEFA. So we need to get the cost down, and you need to get the collections and the transport system about the biomass more mature, and to get those part of the cost down, and to get more of the upfront investment and more of the infrastructures cost down, and then those GFT, A2J or M2Js are going to be more successful in the market, be competitive. So yeah, from my point of view, like the general kind of role is like HEFA is going to be taking a while, maybe until like 2030 or even 2033, 2035. But then it's going to be switching to biomass-based SAF, A2J, GFT, or M2J, those ones. And then finally, we're going to be transiting to a P2L, but that's completely combined with also other sectors taking off, like I mentioned, the hydrogen or also the green mass node production based on those P2L technology roadmap as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wang Zhe. And my short summary of your comment is like, it's like a person is growing, right? First, a person needs to learn how to crawl, and then need to learn how to walk, and then run. So this is the same stages for SAF development. First, we need to crawl. For example, like HEFA probably is the crawling stage. But in order to walk, probably we need about A2J, MTJ, or GFT to really make industry work. And in order for this industry to run or even fly, we need to like P2L. But that's in the longer solution. Okay, thank you. And then now the second question in the round 2 goes to Johnny from Cathay. My question to Johnny is that is the current SAF supply in Greater China sufficient for Cathay and other leading airlines to satisfy the sustainability goals? And if not, what other measures should be taken in order to achieve your sustainability goals? Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I really echo what you and Mr. Wang Zhe said just now. I think the metaphor to human development has been very relevant as well. Our SAF industry is still nascent for the current moment. While this capacity is growing, most of them are still under planning or under construction. They are not yet in corporation. Most of them, I would say, the plants. However, we see a lot of plants being planned, and we see not just HEFA with good potentials, but also the project like A2J, alcohol to jet, that's of really great potentials to scale up, and of good resources from both China and also from importing from other countries too. What we want to say is that we think the current supply of SAF is not yet that enough in terms of 3 things. First, it has not reached the scale that can enable a competitive pricing, meaning that with a relatively limited supply, the price of those SAF products have not been able to fully competitive in the market and not liquid enough to make something like index or other reference because the transaction volume itself was not big. Second, the SAF supply has not been diversified, as you mentioned just now, only with HEFA technology as the main way. Last year for Cathay Pacific, we used around 36,000 tons of neat SAF for the whole year. We are already one of the large airlines already in terms of SAF usage. However, I would say majority, or if not 100% of them came from HEFA. So that means we have not been able to diversify SAF source into other sources like A2J SAF or FT SAF or M2J SAF, etc. And the third thing, exports itself has been mostly gone to EU markets, meaning that many SAF plants, once they are planned or into operation, they already schedule themselves to fit into or cater for the EU markets. So for those airlines that are operating outside of EU like us, it has been a challenge because we might have to deal with the vessels shipping. We might have to deal with how to brand the SAF product outside of Europe, things like this. Even if the product or the UCO itself came from Asia or even from China, we are still having the difficulty of shipping them to the ports that we really need. So in short, I would say SAF supply will need a greater scale up, not just in terms of production, but also in terms of the backup services and the logistics.
Okay, thank you very much, Johnny. I think a quick recap, the key word is diversification. Not only diversification of the SAF supply, but also the diversification of the feedstock. So both are equally important. Okay, all right. The third question goes to Jin for the round 2. So Jin, could you please comment on the SAF supply and demand in Australia? What is the status quo? Or in the Asia Pacific in general? Please, thank you.
Sure, Shen, thanks. On supply and demand side, the Asia Pacific pictures is developing unevenly. Capacity announcements and production capability are rising, but demand is still catching up because mandates and price support vary widely by market. Mainland China's long-term demand potential is massive because of aviation growth, but near-term, the SAF market is still emerging. That is why pilots and infrastructure build-out matter so much. We are also seeing mainland China's SAF capability expanding, particularly around current dominant pathways like HEVA, as mentioned by other panelists, even while broader certification systems and economics evolve. What this matters in practice is that mainland China can be both a future scale consumer and, in certain periods, a meaningful regional supplier as capacity develops. Hong Kong's supply reality is simple. It's mostly a demand-side hub, international airlines, long-haul operations, and strong pressure from corporate customers and financiers to decarbonize now. Hong Kong International Airport has been actively studying options to accelerate SAF adoption and has developed strategic options to support policy development, which shows the market is preparing for scale. And this is where book and claim becomes extremely practical. It allows the environmental attribute of SAF to be purchased and claimed even if the physical SAF is uplifted elsewhere, a concept being actively worked through internationally under the ICAO and industry schemes. So Cathay's corporate SAF program is effectively a book and claim style demand too. Corporates contribute, SAF is used within the airline's operations, and corporate receive documentation supporting Scope 3 reduction claims. Looking back in Australia, Australia's opportunity is increasingly on the supply side, both for domestic use and over time as a reliable exporter to North Asia, including Hong Kong, because the fundamentals are strengthening. For context, Australia's jet fuel use averaged around 7.7 billion litres per year in recent years. So even modest blending levels imply very large volumes over time. The key shift is Australia is moving from roadmap to projects. For example, Jet Zero Australia's project Ulysses is progressing through a front-end engineering design study. The FEED is the detailed engineering phase that tightens cost estimates and de-risk execution before final investment decision. And that's the kind of development stage lenders and strategic investors pay attention to, because FEED is where projects become financeable rather than conceptual. Back to you, Shen.
Okay, thank you very much, Jin, for your answer. Especially, you mentioned about the book and claim. Book and claim is a very important and critical mechanism to really, tackle the challenge of the uneven distribution and also supply of the SAF. I'm glad you mentioned about that. All right, so I can tell now we have about 90 participants and audience, and the audience are very active by asking questions. Now we have already received about 5 questions, and later I will answer. Okay, the last round for our panel is about challenges. We always say that everyone knows that, and we acknowledge that there are a lot of opportunities for SAF and also sustainable fuel in general. However, there are some very, very critical challenges, and we need to tackle in order to let the SAF industry to grow. And my first question in this round goes to Johnny. And what are the key challenges of the SAF supply from the airline's perspective? And what do you think about the solution and how to tackle them? Johnny, please.
I think for Cathay, here we are based in Hong Kong, and we are having the hinterland from GBA, which is the Greater Bay Area. We always see Greater Bay Area or the entire Chinese mainland as the supply house of SAF for us, not just for us, but also for the aviation sector to decarbonize in the future. So what we take now is to the extending our headquarters from just Hong Kong to a broader area like GBA, because we will see more and more SAF plants coming out from there. For example, the recent announcement by the Hong Kong SAR government to build up the first SAF plant in Dongguan City. So Dongguan is one of the manufacturing hubs for China since decades ago, but it is now seeking transformation and upgrade of industries. So green aviation and green decarbonization industry are definitely one of the targets here. SAF is exactly sitting in the intersection between what Hong Kong needs and what the GBA can produce. Next is about the logistics, right? We have customs, we have easier flexibility. So that's the Greater Bay Area, I mean, short for Guangdong Province, probably. Guangdong Province can use its coastal hubs and all the transport facilities to ship the products to Hong Kong International Airport. So we are able to make use of these benefits, while at the same time we still see at least two challenges. One part is the availability. The other part is the affordability. So I will summarize in these two terms. First, about availability, we mentioned already some of the tricky points, right? Dr. Wang, you were very well aware of the non-diversification of the issue of the SAF issues. We actually need the market to join hands together to solve it by enhancing the production and also diversifying the pathways. Not just the traditional way, but also the new potential ways like power to liquid, like A to J. And in order to do that, the market will also need to gradually become more liquid and coming up with an index price. Currently, I will not say there is a really good reference of index anywhere in the world for SAF, not just in China. We are not having a big enough market so that the index showing there might be of one or two scattered transactions, which are not representative at all. So in this case, some producers might be misled by, okay, wow, look at the market price. We should also charge our customers at that level. But the problem is that for airlines, we are having a global network. We are having different flights from all around the world. So we can choose those ports with the best SAF price to uplift our SAF. So even if we need it, right? As Jeannie just mentioned, we have a corporate SAF program. Thanks for promoting this for us as well. We have that kind of need or demand, but we can choose the cheapest port to uplift the SAF, not necessarily in Hong Kong and not necessarily in GBA. This is a very normal economic incentive, right? That's why if we or suppliers from one or two regions only look at the index price, it will not be actually correct. It will not be actually the right indication of what you should charge the customers. And that leads to my second point of affordability. For airlines, we are an industry of thin profits. IATA has a statistic showing that airlines can actually generally profit by only 3% to 4%. So each flight or each air ticket, airlines can only earn around the money of a cup of coffee from the passenger. So actually, we are not able to afford a huge amount of premium or extra costs on top of regular jet fuel. Even not considering the high jet fuel time. I mean, currently is a really expensive jet fuel time, but even during the normal times, we are seeking a level which is reasonable enough and affordable enough. In that sense, we will need to work with our corporate customers. Corporate customers can come from those who have the demand for business travels or cargo shipping. So in terms of cargo shipping, this is a special case because a lot of shippers like Apple, Amazon, they have the need to ship their products from one country to the other using aviation services. This is where carbon footprint or scope 3 emission responsibility is generated. And that's why using SAF can help them and also help us airlines to achieve a better goal. So in this sense, companies like Amazon, Apple, they have the incentive and willingness to share the cost with us. And this is how we perceive the market now. The two issues, one is lack of availability and the other is the lack of affordability. We will need to adjust them together.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Johnny. And to recap, you mentioned about A, right? Affordability and also availability and also accessibility. I always call the difficult for SAF or clean fuel in general is called SaaS, SAAS. The first one is the security, energy security. The three A's: availability, affordability, and accessibility. And the last S is the sustainability. All right. Okay, the second question about the challenges goes to Mr. Wang Zhe. This question specific about SAF projects? Just now, Johnny mentioned about the challenges from the airlines perspective, but my question to you is what are the key challenges of the SAF projects, especially development and also deployment, and how to tackle them? Mr. Wang Zhe, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the question. So I think I can articulate this question in also several aspects. So first, I definitely want to mention is like the demand or the cost acceptance or willingness to pay for SAF. This is definitely very headache for like a lot of the projects or developers when they're talking about I'm in the game, I'm producing SAF, a lot of capacity, but how can my projects turn into real benefits or real profits for me? And they're gonna sell those SAF into the markets, and then you go around, look into the market, you find well, there are demands, but just in a certain amount, and if that's the reason why people, when talking about Asian markets or especially for China, why people are asking for mandates very heavily, because like mandates means that demand is going to be more stable and it's going to be more promising for those projects, guaranteeing they're going to be into a full capacity production way and then turn those money back into their investments. Definitely, this is going to be the top challenge, and we need demands, we need mandates for resolving that a little bit. But also, like I mentioned, it's not going to be only mandates; it's going to be more markets working together. Like Jenny mentioned about book and claim or other market mechanisms to help people creating demand in a way that more people, even not accessible to SAF, but accessible to those green attributes, that I can pay for that. And they're going to be increasing the overall demand for people buying SAF, buying attributes, and also sharing those costs. And that creates more scale for the upper level producers or the SAF projects to be safer and to be more successful. And I think another aspect when I talking with those producers or those projects, like the uncertainty about the overall policy globally, and also considering about the geopolitics, collaborations or the trade flows among different countries. The uncertainty contains like several layers, not only about like whether this country or these several regions or the countries are going to be keeping those ambitions up. For example, a lot of people being a little bit worried about whether Europe is going to be continuing to be that strong on those SAF mandates or the regulations. And also on some fronts, like are like those trade flows or geopolitics going to be impacting my export or import about the resources or the SAF. That's going to be leading those producers very cautious on opening up fully on share on those production every day. And also even Europe has very ambitious targets. You see their targets being in a ratio like 1%, like 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%, and then 6%. Suddenly in like 2030. I even talking with several producers. This is something they concern about because you're not sure what's going to be happening in middle, but it requires you to being kind of increasing the amount of production largely suddenly within 1 year, making them feel like, why am I going to be sure to adding more capacity or adding more production at that single year or getting more preparations before? those decisions are very hard to make. So those uncertainties about the policies and also the overall trends, and also the overall global markets and trades are definitely also a big challenge. And I think finally there are some challenges around like the overall overall decarbonization or the climate change or SAF sector contribution to the overall market zero carbon or clean energy transition, those ambitions or those kind of beliefs. Because when people talking about like a carbon reduction, and people thinking about a cost curve, like different levers, different solutions we can choose across the map. And you find that there are several things ahead of or just before the aviation sector. Like aviation in the global is like a small percentage. So people thinking about, why am I doing only SAF? Am I thinking about like renewable power first? That's cheaper and easier to accept, to be accessible. And also maybe other EVs or other things that for corporate side, when they can think about doing, there are a lot of things maybe more prioritized than SAF. So we need to be clarified and be clear for every sector stakeholders, like not only about the importance on the amount of reduction it can contribute by SAF, but also the overall sectors or the industry generation, and also the other co-benefits on producing SAF and also other clean fuels. And also those shared benefits towards other sectors. So that's going to be also some challenges when people talking about the overall SAF or also the aviation decarbonization. Yeah, so that's my key points.
Okay, well said. I think that's a very good summary. And I think to recap, the key word is de-risking. Because for projects deployment, de-risking is always the key to consider. But the question is how to de-risk different risks, right? There are different aspects of the risks, and how to de-risk them in the in the bundle is not very easy. Okay, the last question of the round 3 goes to Jean. Can you comment or address the key challenges of the SAF development in Australia, and how does Australia provide the solution? Thank you.
Thanks, Shen. Let me make this very practical. In Australia, the SAF deployment challenge can be simplified into 4 buckets: cost, demand certainty, feedstocks, and infrastructure plus certification. First, cost. SAF remains materially more expensive than conventional jet fuel, which is why early-stage markets need policy support to close the gap. Australia's response is now clearer and larger scale. The Cleaner Fuels program is intended to stimulate private investment by providing production-linked incentives over a 10-year period, which directly targets the early cost disadvantages for domestic producers. And alongside that, ARENA's SAF funding initiative has been supporting feasibility and pre-commercial work to build a pipeline of projects. When you see projects moving through FEED with government's co-funding, that's basically the public sector helping the market get through first-of-the-kind cost hurdles. Second is demand certainty, the classic chicken and egg problem. Producers won't build without offtake, and airlines hesitate without reliable supply and price. This is exactly why the Australian government has been consulting on demand-side measures, including the cost and benefits of mandates or other mechanisms, to create a durable market signal. In investor terms, this matters because demand-side policy is what turns SAF from a good project into a bankable revenue stream. And that's what unlocks scalable private capital. The third is feedstocks. And this is where people often misunderstand the constraint. It's not just, do we have used cooking oil or agricultural residues? It's who else wants them. Renewable diesel, chemicals, and export markets can all put on the same molecules. Australia's response is diversification, moving beyond the most constrained waste oils and fats by supporting alternative pathways like alcohol to jet, where ethanol feedstocks can be less constrained than HEVA feedstocks. That's why Project Ulysses is strategically important. It is not only a project, it is also a pathway diversification signals. The fourth one is infrastructure and certification. Even with fuel, you need storage, blending, logistics, and you need credible sustainability verification. That is where alignment with ICAO and CORSIA becomes critical, because airlines and corporate customers need confidence. Their SAF claims stand up under international reporting and assurance. We're seeing Hong Kong moving on this as well. Hong Kong International Airport has supported SAF uplift, readiness, and sustainability certification linked to the CORSIA-related needs, which helps enable airlines to participate. So that's my answer to the question. Back to you, Shen.
Okay, thank you, Jin. And all right, perfect. I was told by Ross, and we have to end sharply at 4 p.m. So we have about close to 8 minutes for questions. And I can tell that audience are very active by asking already. We have already collected about 8 questions already. So I looked through the questions. There are some duplications, so I will skip those questions. I will ask some questions, and that is very distinctive and outstanding. I think this question is very outstanding. So how does China deal with the traceability problem of collecting oil from different suppliers, considering different scales of business that supply this feedstock? So I paraphrase it as the certification and traceability problem. So any of the panelists want to jump into and answer these questions?
I think I have tapped in the answer there, but I just want to say a little bit more about that. So this is definitely a great question. And first, I want to mention, I said about like China collecting those cooking oils quite easy, but it's not that very easy. Like there are only like 40 or to 50% of those cooking oil can be collected. And this very, very big geography of China, so it's a lot of restaurants. It's a disaster for you to think about collecting every restaurant about those used cooking oils. And it is actually driven by the market and the demand instead of like we finding ways directly collecting those cooking oils and then we found we can produce that SAF. It's like about we can produce SAF. We have SAF demand. We have HVO demand. And then we find the dealers happening collecting those cooking oils in the market. And there are like bigger dealers and smaller dealers. This is not a very pure regulated market, I can say. So for the big dealers, the traceability is much more guaranteed. Like they can trace to the direct sources of each restaurant, like because they have really stable collaborations with them. But actually, for those smaller dealers, it's very hard for you to imagine like they can trace every unit of those used cooking oils. So there are definitely some points of those missing links potentially between 100% traceable.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Wang Zhou, for answering this question. So we have time for another question. I think this question is important, specific address to Jin. So one of the audience is asking you, how are you doing or how do you implement book and claim implementation in Australia? Can you elaborate? Thanks.
Sure, that's a very good question. Actually, Australia is still in an early stage of book and claim, but it's moving in that right direction. We're seeing pilot projects and industry-led initiatives, particularly around airport infrastructure and airline programs, that are starting to test how book and claim could work in practice. Importantly, the government is focusing on getting the fundamentals right first: certification, traceability, and alignment with ICAO and CORSIA, because book and claim only works if that accounting is credible. So I would say Australia is not yet at scale, but it is clearly positioning book and claim as a key tool to unlock early SAF demand, especially for international markets.
Okay, thank you very much, Jing. I think this is we have 5 minutes left, and it is the right timing to do a quick wrap up. First of all, let's give a round of applause to our three distinctive and also very outstanding panelists for their expertise, for sharing their expertise without any reservation. So really appreciate. And the other thing I want to mention as a concluding remark is I really appreciate that Rosalind is organizing this event because first of all, I want to say this is the first inaugural event of SAF Congress in China. And the SAF Congress, luckily enough, I have already spoken or attended several of SAF Congress meetings for example, in Houston, North America, in Singapore, in Asia Pacific, and also in Dubai or Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. And also, SAF Congress also hosts meetings, for example, in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and also in Amsterdam in Europe. But in this upcoming September, this is the first time that SAF Congress is going to launch this inaugural meeting in Hong Kong, in Greater China area. So this is, based on today's webinar, as you can see, China's market is big enough to arouse a lot of attention. So I really want to appreciate that Ross and her team put together such a wonderful event. Okay, now it's the right timing to hand over the floor to you, Ross.